not only F&G's product, but just kind of the things to pay attention for in calls or in client appointments that would kind of indicate to you that maybe this is the direction to go. So I'm going to stop talking, mute myself out. Shannon, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Well, thank you guys for having me. First off, I love being on for the beginning. I know a lot of times they'll be like, oh, you don't need to jump in until like 15 minutes in, but I love to hear the leaderboards. I love to see all of you guys increasing your sales, finding that rhythm, and then really being able to land that business. I got asked a couple weeks ago to do a meeting, and they asked me to provide a tagline for myself, and I had never had to do that. But I came up with a tagline that said, my role is to create opportunities and success through education and training. And so that's what I'm here to do, is to help you guys be as successful as you can possibly be and have the confidence in your back pocket to go into those meetings and know that even if you don't know the answer, you know me and I know the answer. So we are good to go here today, and I'm excited. I'm going to do an overview. I know that Hunter had asked for a few specifics, so I'm going to touch on, the advantages of a fixed IUL over, so say like a simplified issue product. And then we're going to talk a little bit about who an ideal candidate is for an IUL, and then comments, phrases, things to have in the back of your head, that if you hear them, it triggers, hey, this person might be a candidate. And then we're going to talk a little bit about benefits of an IUL with no understanding of life insurance. So that'll be a good one. And that one's going to trigger some questions, I'll bet. And then I think the most valuable resource, and I'm going to start at the bottom. I think the most valuable resource for any new agent looking to become comfortable with writing IULs is just do them. Just get in there. Play with the software, use yourself, use your family, run those illustrations, get comfortable with the questions, with how you structure that. There is nothing that is going to get you comfortable in this with that I can tell you. You just got to do it, and you just got to run with it. I promise you, we're going to be here to help you. If you get stuck, if you can't figure it out, if you've got a question, my team is going to be here to help walk you through it. And so, I get a lot of people that are always like, well, I don't want to break the system. I promise you, I've tried to break the system and I can't. And if I can't, no one can, because I break everything I touch. So, so with that being said, I am going to talk a little bit about the advantages of an IUL over an express IUL, and kind of why we want to be looking at the fixed F&G IUL. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. And you're going to get a nice, pretty little green box. But let's talk about why the F&G IUL specifically, but then also why IULs. So what is the difference between an express IUL and an F&G's IUL? Well, the main difference is that your clients are going to be able to receive actually best rate class. So that means that their costs aren't going to be dictated by by a pass-fail system, system. They're going to actually be able to potentially have medical problems and still get coverage. What we're really trying to do here is provide coverage for everybody, not just the super healthy, not just the people with lots of money. We're providing it for everybody, and especially in that middle market. There's nothing wrong with simplified issue. What it does, though, is it limits the amount of growth and potential that those clients have, because now you're paying more for the cost of insurance, you're paying higher fees, you're paying higher, monthly unit expense charges, because you're getting a table 2 rating, and that's the best you can do. Or you fail, and then you have a decline on your MIB, and now you're really in a problem, right? F&G's exam-free underwriting, while it is non-invasive, is still fully medically underwritten. We're not going to ask for a paramed. You're going to get your best rate class from preferred all the way down to table 8. And even at table 8, we're not going to ask for your client to get a blood draw or a needle stick, have to go to the bathroom in front of anybody. We're not going to ask anybody to do that. We're going to utilize the data that's already out there with MIBs, with MVRs, script checks, doctor's notes, all of that, and we're going to make a determination, and that's going to put them where they need to be. Once again, simplified issue is great if you have somebody who definitely is like, I don't care how much money I make in the end, but how many of your clients are actually saying that to you? I would guess not very many of them. I'm thinking most of the people that we talk to are very interested in the outcome of this IUL. So for me, that is the most, that is the biggest advantage, is you're going to be able to give your clients the best product. And on top of everything else, F&G beats Moo 99.9% of the time accumulation wise. And why wouldn't we want to give our clients the very best accumulation IUL on the market? I just think that that is, for the extra 5 days that it may take to get the policy issued, it's because we're doing our due diligence and we're making sure that it's still at a good cost for the client. I want to talk a little bit about why F&G now, and then what all of this, kind of looks like with regards to F&G. So I can read this screen to you, and I promised myself a long time ago I was never going to be one of those presenters that just read the PowerPoint to you. I know that y'all can read as well. So I'm going to talk about what these points mean to your client. So what is a strong product performance driven by high caps and reliable cap history? Wow, that sounds really, really fancy, doesn't it? You're going to stun people with that verbiage, but what does it mean? What do you say when the client goes, okay, that's great. What does it mean? What this means is that F&G isn't just looking at today. They're not just looking at tomorrow. They're not looking at 20 years down the road. We have 12 plus years of reliable cap history that we can show your clients. And why is that important? It's important because your client needs to know that their money is secure, that what they're told today isn't going to bounce all over the place for the next 20 years while they're trying to accumulate. We issued this portfolio in 2012, and since that, and the S&P cap at that point in time was 13 and a half. Today it is 12. That's pretty small. That's a very small drop with regards to caps. And it hasn't been skyrocketing or jumping all over the place in that 12 years that we've had this out. It's been relatively stable. So your clients can look at those numbers and say, hey, this place isn't going to be, it isn't a bait and switch. You're not putting me into this product and then all of a sudden dropping that cap to 5% or something along those lines. And I think that's just huge importance because we want our clients to feel safe and secure. I mean, you guys are out there as their risk advisors. So you want them to feel that what you're telling them is their reality. And this is how we do that, by providing them with reliability and security. Performance-driven variable loan rate. Once again, sounds really, really fancy, doesn't it? This is the biggest selling point, in my opinion, on our IUL. And why that is because there is a really solid chance that in 20, 30, 40 years from now, we're not going to be here when those clients go to start taking funds. We're going to be retired. We're going to have moved on, right? So you want to be able to tell your client today, when your daughter, your son, your 5-year-old child right now in 60 years, when they're ready to start taking those withdrawals, they are capped at 5%. That low interest rate can never go above that. Once again, providing security for your client that they aren't going to have to go out and get their money with a 20% interest loan rate. Now, I don't know what interest rates are going to be in 20 years. I know they're not great now. I'm hoping that we come back down at some point, and that 5% is just the max. It can always go down. It just can't ever get above that. So how many of our clients would be super stoked to hear that you're never going to pay more than 5% interest on your loan? I think that's a huge selling point. We have a proprietary index, the Barclays Trailblazer Sectors 5. It is a volatility control index. So what does that mean? That means that Barclays is in times of interest in times of instability and volatility in the market, Barclays is working to keep their volatility around 5%. So they're not having these massive swings. So has the Barclays performed overly well in the last couple of years? No, it has not, because of the soft interest rate that we're in right now. That is it is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It is protecting those investments so that the client um, doesn't see those big swings, but also doesn't see the big losses. And, even though you're not going to lose anything, even though a zero is your hero type of mentality exists, there's still more opportunity for you to get better crediting. And we've done that with our enhancements on this Barclays. We've done that with the 1% bonus, with the 170% participation rate. So if we do 10% in a year, and I use 10% because it's a nice round number and I can do that math even on a Monday morning. If your client has a 10% year with the Barclays, they have a 170% participation rate. Now they're getting 17%. Oh, and then they have a 1% bonus on top of that. Now they're getting 18%. They didn't have to wait for the index to do something. Those enhancements are added automatically. They don't have to buy them. They don't have to wait for them to kick in. These are part of the process. We have a question. I don't want to say your first name wrong. I'm sorry.
You're
Miss
fine.
Wood.
It's Ibble.
Ibble. Okay.
So you were talking about this Barclays index and this how it protects your money. And I've done a couple IULs and I feel like I know what I'm talking about, but I really don't know how is an index protecting your money? Like I thought the Barclays index was like an S&P 500 index. Like, can you explain exactly what it is? Because I'm kind of lost.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at the S&P, right, you can see that they are investing in things that are a little bit, you're seeing a lot more real estate, you're seeing a lot more volatile types of investments. Whereas with the Barclays, their investments are in things that are much, much safer. So even though we're not taking your premium and saying we're putting this in Barclays, we're utilizing their gains to be able to credit that account. So your clients are never going to lose money. They're never going to be, they're never, if the index returns negatively, they're never going to receive, a deduction in their account. That money is always protected. We have a floor interest rate that we can't go below. But when we look at the Barclays, they're investing their funds into items like bonds, gold, things that are much, much safer and don't have the volatile swings back and forth. Whereas with the S&P, I think the S&P runs right around 24, 25% volatility right now. So with great gains comes, a big opportunity to have a negative year the next year. And so we look at that and we say, what's a better way to create a stable environment for that money to grow safely? Does that make sense?
Yes, that answers my question. And then what are these fancy from 10% to 170%?
So a participation rate is the rate above, or the rate of the index crediting that you're going to receive. So if your participation rate is 100% and you, as most are, you're going to receive 100% of that positive crediting. If your index, or if your participation rate is 170%, you're going to receive 170% of that index crediting. So like I said, if you have a 10%, if you have a year where the gain inside of that account or inside of that index is 10%, your clients are going to receive a higher participation rate because of that of that 170%. And then the Barclays also adds a 1% bonus on top of that as well. So even in years where it doesn't return positively, you are also going to get a 1% bonus. So your clients, when everybody else is getting zero, your client, or losing money because they put it right into the stock market, your clients are going to see a gain of about 1.25, which is huge in a market where everything else is negative. Okay, awesome. All right. And then moving on from that, we accelerated death benefits, we call them living benefits as well. These are so vastly important to the client, right? Um, you we have made such huge advancements in our medical history that it is so important that the client, if they survive something, aren't going to become medically bankrupt, right? Or if their long-term care or something along those lines, doesn't have the coverages that they need, you can utilize these accelerated living benefits to be able to, once again, enhance what you have. Long-term care riders and long-term care standalone products are hard to come by anymore, and they're expensive. These living benefits, your chronic, your terminal, and your critical illness, are built into the policy. There is no cost of insurance attached to these riders. So that's a huge benefit for your clients. And I always use the example during COVID, there was a gentleman who was in the hospital for something like 9 months. He was in ICU for 9 months and he survived. And he walked out of that hospital owing $1 million. That's huge. That is, I mean, I don't mean this to sound flip, but was it worth it? And I'm sure that all got worked out, and I'm sure that all got paid by something else. But that is just a snippet of what medical bankruptcy can look like. And it is, medical bankruptcy in and of itself is probably about the number one reason that people file for bankruptcy, is because of doctors' bills and things like that. Our healthcare system is expensive. That's just what it is. And with the advancements in medical, in medicine and things like that and treatments, people are living longer and surviving things that 10 years ago, 20 years ago would have probably killed them, unfortunately. And so, what happens when you survive the unthinkable, as much as, survive your family surviving your passing? This is a way that they can be helped. The best part about the accelerated benefits is they're indemnity free. We don't care what you spend the money on once you qualify. So if you qualify for the critical illness rider and you take that money out, we don't care if you use it to pay the doctor's bill or not. That's up to you. But you have access to that funds. Whereas sometimes with like long-term care riders, you're going to have to qualify your expense. You're going to have to say, this is for room and board at my assisted living facility. And then they're going to make a decision as to whether or not that is an expense that is justifiable. We're not going to do that. In terminal illness, you want to take a cruise around the world with your last 12 months or 24 months, have at it, friend. Go for it. Do what you need to do. And that money is going to be distributed in once again, just like a death benefit, a tax-free manner. And then how do we kind of wrap all of that up for you? We do it with that exam-free underwriting that we talked about. I want to be really clear. It is not non-medical. It is fully underwritten. So that means that we have to ask our clients those medical questions. And we want to make sure that our clients fully understand what this is. Yes, you're not going to have a paramed, but they are going to talk to your doctor. They are going to look at your prescription history. Tell me everything. The number one thing that underwriters hate is surprises. They don't like them. They don't want them. And if they get one, they start to dig because they think if somebody but didn't tell me about this. What else didn't they tell me? I know that field underwriting has changed a lot over the last decade, especially with COVID and people doing everything over Zoom. But we want to make sure that your client understands you're not telling me information, you're confirming information that the underwriter's going to find. So you're not divulging something to me that is going to get you a lower rating. You're telling me that, yes, I have high blood pressure and I take lisinopril, 20 milligrams, once a day. If you say, I'm perfectly healthy, I don't have anything wrong, and I don't take any medications, and they find high blood pressure medication, they're going to want to know what's going on. It extends the amount of time that it takes for us to underwrite, because now we've got to get an APS and we've got to do all of these other things. The number one cause of APSs is conflicting medical information with regard to what's on the app versus what they find when they pull the notes. So once again, as always, you're not giving me information, you're confirming information that's already readily available for underwriting to find. And I think that is huge. If our clients understand that, then I think that they have a better chance of being, not that our clients aren't truthful, they just don't think that it's a big deal. So we want to help them understand that it is a big deal and that we do need to know what's going on. I love this slide. I love this slide because this slide really breaks down the path setter for you in such a way that you can utilize this for all walks of life. And I know Symmetry does a lot in middle market, that $50,000 to $150,000 a year family that is trying to take care of themselves and take care of their children. And there was a huge misconception for a long time that life insurance in general and IULs specifically were for the wealthy, for the rich. F&G said, no, I don't think that's accurate. We're not going to do that. And we gave you a $50,000 minimum face amount. What does that mean? That means your client has the opportunity to get into an IUL relatively inexpensively. They are able to start putting money away for a low cost. They're not going to have to shell out $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month. They're going to be able to start. And as their circumstances change and as they start making more money, they can increase those premiums. But it's never, you don't have to wait until you have the money. You can start with a lower face amount and increase it and continue to build up those cash reserves. 0 to 80, that's a really big range, right? That's huge. And I know that Hunter had asked, who's the ideal candidate for an IUL? I would say that 20 to 45 is really the niche market. 0 to 18, if you've got people with kids, that $1 million baby scenario will get you in the door. People are so much more interested in doing something for their kids than they are in doing something for themselves. You guys, any moms out here, how many of us are still wearing the same leggings that we've had for 5 years while our kids have a whole new wardrobe every 3 months? New shoes. Exactly. We're so much more interested in that. And we don't want to be selfish. We want to take care of our kids. Imagine setting your kid up at 0 or 2 or 5 with a great opportunity for financial freedom in their future. I think that's huge. And I think that that's a great way to get in the door and talk to these people about what you can do for them and how you can make their life better. Once again, the variable loan rate with that 5% guarantee, to me, the biggest selling point in the IUL, especially for people who are looking for accumulation. On to that next point, though, what are the words and phrases and comments that agents can be alert for to indicate a client would be a good candidate? Hunter, these questions are so perfectly written. I love them so much. I might steal them. Accumulation. I'm worried about my future. I'm worried about my 401k. I don't have any life insurance. What do I do to take care of my family? I don't think my retirement's going to hold out. Those are all things that you're going to want to hear, but the main one is I'm worried about my future. I'm worried about where to go from here. I'm 30 years old. I'm 35 years old. I haven't really started saving for retirement yet. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to get there. Now, is that necessarily the first conversation you're going to have with a client, a prospective client? No, it's not. But there's some leading questions that you can kind of ask in order to get there. I always start with assumptions. Who has your life insurance? I just need to have that in my file in case something happens to you. You're going to get one of three answers. I don't have life insurance. So we always want to assume that they have life insurance, right? You always kind of want to make it be like, oh, you don't. Interesting. Okay. Well, what is your plan? So the second answer is, oh, I have it through work. Oh, okay, sir, ma'am, is that portable? So when you leave your job, does that life insurance go with you? Do you know? Or I've got it with XYZ agent down the road. Fantastic. That is great news. When was the last time you guys had a review? Is your life insurance still accurate for your needs today versus what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago when you took it out? When was the last time you reviewed it? Those are three answers that you're going to get to one question. And each one of them has their own spoke, right? Each one of them you can spoke off into a different in that wheel, and you're still going to have an opportunity for the sale. But I like the assumption that people have life insurance. Sales is psychology, psychology is sales. It's all one thing. But I do know that anytime you assume something and they don't have it, they will be like, oh, well, yeah, why don't I have that? That seems like something I should have. Now, granted, you're always going to get people that say, oh, I'm independently wealthy and I don't need life insurance and I've got plenty of money. And we can always remind them how quickly our medical our medical system can wipe someone out. $1 million does not go nearly as far as it used to. But I think those are the main words that you really want to be listening for isn't that I'm looking for accumulation. It's fear and insecurity about their future and about how they need to prepare for their future. And that is your gateway. What if I could show you an opportunity for $100 a month, for $200 a month, for a small dollar amount to get you into a product that not only is going to protect your family in the case of the unthinkable, it's going to give you tax-free distributions during your retirement to supplement your retirement income. I'm not saying give up your 401k. I'm not saying to do any of that. I'm saying, can we make a, a spot? Can we create a wedge inside of your financial planning for life insurance with accumulation benefits? I think that is really kind of what you want to listen for. How do you explain benefits of an IUL to someone with no experience? Uh, I don't know. I do this often, and I just talk through. I talk through what the benefits are. First off, we want to make sure that somebody understands an IUL is a life insurance product with a cash accumulation aspect to it. So it's not a savings account. It's not the stock market. It's none of those things. This is a life insurance product. And then we talk them through the illustration and say, hey, this is what we can do. This is what's projected. This is our history of returns that we've had for the last 20 years. These companies are safe. They're not going insolvent. They're not taking your money and closing up shop the next day. That isn't happening anymore because the Department of Insurance doesn't, is regulating all of this and is making sure that, companies are staying within their guidelines. And then I think, having the conversation about life insurance and having the conversation about the unthinkable. Who here has an experience with somebody passing? I do. I have experiences with people passing. Use your own story, guys. Talk about the impact having life insurance had or not having life insurance had on the family. That's huge. Your own story is the best story for you to use. I have stories of kids passing away where one family had life insurance, the other family didn't have life insurance. The family who didn't have life insurance had already used all of their PTO. They'd already used all of their FMLA. They'd already used all of their savings. They had to go back to work like right after the funeral because it was so fast. She was diagnosed with cancer in April and she was gone by July. So they had utilized everything that they had. And for that small, and I'm not saying that anybody should make a profit off of something like that, but I can promise you, and any parent out there, if something happens to one of my kids, I'm not going to work. I'm not. You're not, and my kids are old. I have like 30-year-old. I've got, so my kids are like old. But if something were to happen to one of my children, I would not be able to make it to work and I would not be a functioning adult for a long time. So you don't have to try to sell it as it is income replacement for you as the parent if something happens to your child so that you can continue to live and you don't have to rush your grief process. Now, we can also skip all of that and we can talk about ensuring their insurable interest. We don't know what's going to happen. Get them at a week old, 2 weeks old, before life has a chance to rear its ugly head sometimes, before there's a type 1 diabetes diagnosis, before there's anything else that can go wrong. Get them in a product. And then also talk about, hey, they want to go to college, they want to do this. Oh, well, here in Iowa, I don't know what it's called in every other state, but here in Iowa, it's called a 529 plan, a 529. We're going to set up a 529 plan. Why not give them for the same dollar amount? Why not show them actual growth? And if your child decides, college isn't for me, I want to do this, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I got a full ride scholarship. I have a daughter who got a full ride scholarship to college. Great, happy, but the 529 plan doesn't work anymore. Now you've got to pay a fee to get your money out, and it's yucky and everything else. Whereas if they utilize the IUL, they can just let it sit and continue to grow. If they want to take it to put a down payment on a house or a car, they have the opportunity to do that. Because once again, we're not going to dictate how they spend those funds. And then, you're going to get questions about charges and expenses. And I'm going to be really honest. I am not the most expensive person on the block, but I'm not the cheapest person. And I don't want to be. I do not want to be the cheapest person. And I don't like the word cheap, so I only use it in this context. I don't want to be that person because two things will happen. One of two things will happen. Either the fees will change and you will have to increase your fees, or your client's going to lose out on the accumulation side in the back end. Both of those. We would rather have a little bit higher fee right now at the beginning while they're still working and while we're setting this policy up versus all of a sudden now at the end of their life when they're 65 and they're ready to start taking retirement, they don't have as much money as they thought they were going to because those fees ate at it. And those accumulation values, their caps were lower. Those types of things were happening for them. So I think, once again, having that conversation with the client that, yes, this is a life insurance product. Yes, there are costs associated with the life insurance aspect of that. Yes, there's fees associated with, with the company. You get a commission, I get a commission, those types of things. I don't get a commission, but you want to be able to kind of talk through that. When I was in automobile sales, that was always kind of one of my comments was, I want something that is fair and equitable so that all parties win. I'm a big believer in the 7 habits of highly effective people. And my favorite one is number 3, I believe, which is win-win or no deal. We all can walk away from this happy. Right? We can all walk away from this with something equitable in our pockets. And then we have that no lapse guarantee for the first 15 years. So once again, going back to that $50,000 minimum death benefit, they have the opportunity to start lower with premium and then be able to increase it. But if they need to start with that minimum premium, that's totally doable. And that policy is going to stick around for a minimum of 15 years, right? It's, it's going to stay there so that they can adjust as their income allows for it. We've talked about exam-free underwriting. I just do want to point out that applicants are eligible for instant approval ages 0 to 17 and through a face amount of 200,000. We are getting ready to do more of that. So hopefully within the next 6 to 8 months, you will see more insta approval in different segments. And then our non-US citizens. We are a big, big, big supporter of non-US citizens getting life insurance, and we live in that world. So if your client doesn't have a social security number, doesn't have an I-10, is coming over to the United States on a visa, isn't a permanent resident yet, we can still look at them and we can still offer them coverage. Exam-free underwriting for non-US citizens is going to be up through 300,000 and age 60. So I think those things right there are huge selling points as well, but we spend a lot of time in that foreign national market. So once again, just to sum everything up, we're going to give you the best underwriting classes, or this is why we should illustrate at more clients at standard rates. We're going to put you in the best class. You're going to save time if you have them at standard and they go to preferred, it's not going to be considered an OTAF or an other than applied for. We're just going to move them. Whereas if you have them at preferred and they have to come back to standard, now all of a sudden we have to get a new illustration and you have to talk to them and you have to explain to them that they didn't get preferred, and you're setting yourself up kind of for failure at that point, right? I'd rather walk forward than backwards. I think the conversation to go forward and say, hey, great news, you got preferred, not standard, versus, hey, bad news, you got standard, not preferred. Set yourself up for a good conversation always, and be confident that we're going to put them where they need to be. And then there just really is, very little difference in the illustrated performance between those two. So it's not a big enough difference that it warrants necessarily showing the preferred. Just know that if they get it, it will perform just a little bit better. And that is kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Did I hit on everything that you guys wanted, Hunter, Paige?
Yeah, absolutely, Shannon. Thank you so much. I mean, guys, I hope that between what Shannon was saying in the chat, you realize that this is one of those tools that allows you to walk away from just about every appointment with something in hand, right? Just because of the flexibility and the viability of this product, it opens up a lot of avenues for clients that we might not even consider. And I think the biggest one, that has been a huge thing for Paige and I, is talking to people about their kids, right? Talking to them about what they have in place for their children, because not many people think about life insurance for a child. But as you see with Shannon's presentation here, it's so much more than just death benefit. It's money for college. It's getting them a jump start on their retirement savings. It's making sure that when your child grows up and is raising their own children, they're already going to have a paid up life insurance policy in place, regardless of any health concerns that come up along the way. So awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Shannon. Paige?
Yeah, this is so good. So good. I didn't know that about the non-US citizens. I didn't realize that. And I don't know any other carrier that's a good fit for. So that's great. My question for you, Shannon, is I have two questions. I hope I didn't miss this, but in what scenario should someone run a path setter, and what scenario should someone run a trend setter?
Path setter is going to be for accumulation. So if you have clients that are looking for accumulation, you're going to be focused on Path Setter. Path Setter is our flagship product and probably 99% of our business. If you've got somebody who's looking for a death benefit, that would be our Everlast product. And I think Trail Setter is the other one, and that is a commission-based product. So that one is based more on a spread commission versus a heaped commission. So some differences there, but the bigger problem with that one is that you're doing spread commission, so you're getting less upfront, and you gotta, it's like up to 20 years and that type of thing. So maybe for more established agents who aren't looking necessarily to get or they're maybe looking to build their book of business because they're getting ready to sell, that type of thing, that can increase your ability and your book of business. And I mean, I've been hearing people getting, like 10 times their book when they sell. And I mean, there's probably hoops that they have to jump through, but that can be a definite bonus for them. Sorry, I lost my words. Boombastic, what's up?
Hey, nice to talk to you again. I know we've chatted quite a few times.
Yes.
And I just wanted to see if you can help illustrate and talk about to the newer people who've never even seen the FG product about when you're going to be doing increasing versus level death benefit when it comes to somebody's accumulation and stuff. Because that's the biggest question that I get when people are talking about FG IULs and IULs in general is, how do I set that up properly? If they're looking for retirement, obviously most of the time they're not going to go with a level death benefit. They're going to go with the increasing.
100%. If you guys have time, I would definitely run a quick illustration. I have an illustration that I utilize quite often for this. So if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to share once more. So here I am in Sales Link. You should all be very familiar with this website. This is where you should be living. So I usually utilize like a 30-year-old female. It doesn't matter what state we're in.
As long as it's not New York.
As long as it's not New York. Yes, yes. Here we are, standard non-tobacco. Why apply for standard rates? So there's some things out here, underwriting guidelines, some things out here that you can utilize. When we do a solve, what we're looking at here is a solve for max accumulation and income, if you want to see the income. So this client has told me that they want to pay $350 a month, and I know that that's a pretty significant amount of money, but we're gonna run with it. So we don't know the face amount. We know the premium. So we're gonna go ahead and come in here. We're gonna change this to monthly, and then we're gonna put in the $350. She's gonna pay premiums until she's 65, so we're gonna put A65, and anytime you see this blue circle with the white eye inside of it, know you need either an A or a Y for the age or the year that you want to see the change happen. Cash value, just leave that alone. Don't touch it. We're going to do loans from 65 for 25 years, so 65 to 90. And we're not going to touch this minimum non-MEC death benefit because it's just going to bottom out what she can put into this policy. So Josh's question was, why increasing versus level? So with increasing, what we're doing here is we're bringing the death benefit down as far as we can, and allowing more of your $350 a month to go towards the accumulated value and less to go towards the cost of insurance. So, and then on top of it, your premium that's coming in is also raising that death benefit. So for people who are looking for accumulation, they're really looking to, they're really not as interested in the death benefit aspect of it. So what they want to see is that accumulated value. So we need a lower death benefit. So to Josh's point, if we were to do level, it would increase the death benefit significantly, and you would get less accumulation because now more of your premium is paying for your big face amount than it is paying for the accumulated value. So running this illustration real quick here, if you ever run this and it doesn't pop up, check in this corner. You may have a pop-up blocker turned on, but we can see here that this client started out with about $250,000 of coverage, which is perfectly fine. We're doing an increasing, switching over to A when she quits paying premium. And we're running it at a 50-50 split between S&P and the Barclays. So planned premium is going to be about $4,200 a year. You can see as it comes in that death benefit increases by the account value, not the surrender value, but by the account value. So she starts at $249,696. She pays $4,200 after fees. She's got about $3,200 in the account value, and that's what that increase is right there. So by the time she gets to age 65, she's got about $724,000 of death benefit that if she needs it. But we're going to show her starting to take loans of about $46,000 over the course of the next 25 years. So on top of everything else, what is the second most important part of this is take a look right here. This 147,000 is what she invested into this, and 1.148 million is her projected return. That's pretty good. That's pretty good return. And let's keep in mind that 1.148 million is tax free. She doesn't have to claim it. She doesn't have to talk about it. She gets it. That is a check that comes to her that she can just do whatever she wants with. And she doesn't get 1099 on it. At the end of 25 years, she's got $140,000 of death benefit. So what happened? Well, this is your net death benefit. So this is all of your loans and interest being paid off, and your clients, your beneficiaries would receive that net amount. And the policy still runs out to 120, which is maturity. But you can see that even at age 100, her death benefit has bumped back up to about 477, 478, right around there. So that's why we set it up as increasing versus level. Now, if I were to just run this at level, man, I never run this one at level. What if it's better? I'm just kidding. It won't be.
I was like, yeah, Shannon, was it? Unfortunately, that's so. A lot of agents, unfortunately, when they're looking at IUL and they're not necessarily screwing their client if they don't know it, but because we get paid as insurance agent, we get paid off on how much death benefit there is. So we want to make sure we turn that dial down. We get paid less, but it's better for the client on that on that aspect if that's what they're asking for.
Right. Yeah. So this bumps her death benefit up to about 592. So right there, much more of the premium is going to go towards the cost of insurance. So now instead of $4,200, and then, what was it, 3,200, now she's down to 26. Her income's dropped by about $7,000 a year. So 147, and still 974, 910, great, but still not entirely as good as it could be. So.
Well, and if you think of it, it's what an opportunity for referrals too. If you're like, hey, look what's going to happen for you. You invest this, you get that. I mean, that's going to just pay itself forward forever and ever. So that is such a good point.
Yeah, learning how to use that tool is one of the most powerful things we have in our arsenal. If you can show that kind of illustration to a client and say, look, here's how life insurance is going to put your money to work for you. Yep. It basically sells itself at that point.
100%. And if you guys take a look at it in the chat, I added a website called success.fglife.com/life-agent. And that is going to benefit you immensely. That is a microsite. You do not need to log into it. You don't have to have a password, nothing along those lines. It is full of information. Our foreign national guides are out there. Underwriting guidelines are out there. All sorts of different marketing materials. But there's also two sections. One is an illustration tutorial where there are several different illustrations being run and walking you through how those illustrations look and how we do them. And then the next one is a webinar sign up. We do webinars every week, so sign up for them. They're live. If you can't attend, it's not a big deal. We're gonna send you the link to the recording. So sign up and get that one-on-one connection with the senior internal wholesalers who are out there doing those calls.
Absolutely. And for those of you who haven't done so already, right on Quility HQ, if you go into training and into Quility U, Jeff Sigworth does a 6-part walkthrough of the F&G Path Setter IUL, how to structure it, what to say. Just very, very in-depth explanation of what Shannon just showed us with that illustration as well. So we've got all those great resources out there, guys. Throw it in the chat, please. If hearing from Shannon today got you jacked up and excited to go out and write some IUL business, thank her in the chat. Let her know. Shannon, we appreciate your time so much. Thank you for being here, and just thank you for pouring into our team. This has been really awesome to hear from you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. I know, Hunter, it was kind of a random phone call where I was like, hey, can I be on a meeting?
Yeah, I saw FEG and I thought I was in trouble.
Yep. I do have another meeting at 10 or at 11 my time that I got to jump to. I will talk to you guys soon. My email, my phone number, and the sales desk number are out there. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Go sell insurance. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks,
Bye,
Shannon.
everybody.
Have a
Have a
great
good
day.
Bye.